Joining us now, staff writer at The New Yorker, Susan Glasser, assistant professor of law at Georgia State University, Anthony Michael Kreis, and staff writer for The Atlantic, Franklin Foer, and former Ohio governor and MSNBC political analyst, John Kasich. Thank you all for being with us. And Susan, the president himself has said that a third term is no joke, that he's not joking about this. Should we be now taking Bannon and the president at their word?
Well, look, I mean, Donald Trump is actually actively marketing and selling to his followers Trump 2028 paraphernalia on his campaign website. He has, trolled visitors to the Oval Office by putting Trump 2028 hats in the photo in the Oval Office. So it's not just an idle comment from Steve Bannon, but it represents clearly an effort by Donald Trump and some of his followers to put this out there into the political bloodstream of America. Why are they doing that? Is it just to get people like us, blowing smoke and reading over and over again the very explicit text of the 22nd Amendment? Is it to maintain Donald Trump's relevance? Because remember that essentially Donald Trump is a lame duck president at this point, and there's nothing that Donald Trump fears more than irrelevance or the political world moving on from him. At the same time, he has made moves to challenge aspects of what we would consider to be settled constitutional doctrine that he doesn't like in the past. And so there's no reason to not take him at his word. And I think again and again and again, we have underestimated threats that Trump poses to the constitutional order.
So, Susan, how much influence, do we know how much influence Bannon still wields with the president at this point?
Well, again, it's hard to know. It's an opaque Trump world situation. Donald Trump and Steve Bannon had a contentious relationship. At the same time, Bannon, I think, has proven to be quite an astute analyst of what's going on in MAGA world. He did apparently have lunch with Donald Trump over the summer. And, Trump himself has floated the idea of running again for a third term. So it's not like just an idle comment from Steve Bannon in the sense that Donald Trump has already been out there injecting this into our politics.
Franklin, what's your reaction to Bannon's comments?
I do think that there's an element of trolling, but as Susan says, you look at the East Wing of the White House, it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't try to do whatever they want to any norm or to any American tradition. And I think it's important to go back and to look at the reason why the 22nd Amendment is in place. There was a tradition going back to George Washington that presidents would serve 2 terms. And the reason for that was that we felt as if presidents hung around longer than that, there would be corruption, there would be no check on corruption, that the president himself would become an elective monarch. That was the phrase that people used, the founders used, to describe the threat of a president who stuck around for an extended period of time. After the death of FDR, conservatives in Washington pushed for the 22nd Amendment because they feared dangerous concentrations of power that resided in a president who stuck around for more than 2 terms. And when you hear Steve Bannon talk about President Trump being an instrument of divine will, it does sound as if he's describing him as a monarch. That's the way that people talked about kings and queens in the past. And that's a very un-American thing to talk about.
So even if there's an element of trolling going on here, how dangerous is it that you have these very serious comments coming from the president himself being fed to his supporters, who we saw he has tremendous influence over, if January 6th was any indication of that?
I think it's reflective of a kind of a bottomless ambition to grab as much power as possible. And I think that they will keep pushing and testing the limits of what he can hold on to. And in this instance, I think that they're probably actively testing what's possible.
Professor, from a constitutional law perspective, how ironclad is the 22nd Amendment? And you heard Bannon there. Are there ways that Trump and his allies can circumvent the Constitution or rewrite it?
Well, the 22nd Amendment is ironclad unless you are intent on strangling the entire meaning and intent out of the 22nd Amendment. It's fairly clear that you can't be elected to more than 2 terms of office as president. And the 12th Amendment also makes it clear that you can't run for vice president and be ineligible for the presidency. And so you really have to do a couple of things. One is that you would have to claim that somehow being elected is different from serving, and that's entirely inconsistent with what conservatives in Congress in the late 1940s were attempting to achieve with the 22nd Amendment. And I think, again, you have to look at the history and tradition here, that Americans have traditionally had presidents that served for 2 terms. FDR broke that. I think I won't minimize the partisan motivations of Republicans in the 1940s to get this amendment in place, and they certainly couched it in terms of being anti-authoritarian and pro-democracy. But at the end of the day, everybody knows what this amendment was supposed to do. It's simply supposed to keep somebody from running and serving more than 2 terms in office, and it's just simple as that.
Governor, if you were Governor or Congressman Kasich still, and the president announced that he was officially going to seek a 3rd term, what would you do?
I would laugh. Listen, Trump has an amazing ability, and some of the people that support him, amazing ability to push our buttons, to push your buttons. There's nothing going to come of all this. This is look, first of all, the Congress can't even keep the government open. My Substack the other day, I was talking about how these air traffic controllers are getting so upset. The pilots are actually sending pizza up to the control tower. I mean, it's things like the debt. It's things like inflation. You just got new numbers today. That's what we need to be focused on. And when you're focusing on, oh, my goodness, he's going to run again, it just kind of gets us off what I think are the most important things and the questions that really need to be asked. But you couldn't get 2/3 of the Congress and 3/4 of the state to agree on Mother Teresa, let alone giving somebody a 3rd term. I guess Guy Vanderjack in the old days here, sometime I don't know, when Reagan was getting close to the end, he put a bill in. Of course, it never got anywhere. It never got any hearings or anything like that. So, again, I think it's really, I just watched it this morning and I just kind of chuckled about it all, because they really have an ability to get our attention all over the place and keep us off some things that we really ought to be focused on.
I can reassure you that on this program, we are tackling all of those very important issues that you just mentioned. So it's a yes and situation, Governor. So, but here's the thing. Trump had said that he knew nothing about Project 2025, and now we see slowly but surely we are checking the list of Project 2025 agenda items here. So at what point do Republicans need to step up and say, we need to put some guardrails in place here? We need to call this out.
Well, first of all, there are guardrails.
Should they be calling this out?
No, no. I mean, it's just nothing to take. Again, taking that seriously, it's no. Listen, have we had any states try to move to call a convention to change the amendment? Have we had any Republican governors do that? They're not even going to answer a question like that, because it's not going to happen. I mean, I hate to burst a balloon here because it's a great headline and it's a good clickbait and all that other stuff. But if you're asking me, and look, I know so many of my former colleagues, they wouldn't take this seriously because it isn't something to be taken seriously. And the ones that I talk to now, they would laugh if I asked them, are you ready to give Trump a 3rd term? I mean, look, I think they're kind of sitting around there waiting for all this to pass, and what we have to focus on the issues I mentioned, and one of the interesting questions is going to be what comes next. But I don't take it seriously.
And we will focus on those issues, and we have. Susan, do you agree with the governor? Are we taking this too seriously?
Donald Trump and Steve Bannon in particular love to troll us. We have to stipulate to that. But I think that these folks have showed a remarkable ability to normalize and acclimatize all of us to things that are actually laughably outside of the realm of what we would consider the legitimate purview of the president of the United States. And, where were John Kasich's colleagues? Were they laughing when Donald Trump has decided to send American soldiers to American cities because he doesn't like the politics of those cities. I mean, that's laughably absurd. If you had told then Congressman Kasich and his colleagues that a Democratic president was going to send in the military to Alabama and Mississippi because they were out of control, would he have laughed at that? Yes, he would, because that is laughable. And yet that is occurring. So I totally take the point. Absolutely. It's an important point, in fact, that we are now discussing things that Donald Trump wants us to discuss. He loves the idea that we're talking about extending his power, whether he chooses to pursue this path or not. What we're seeing right now, though, is a president for whom the concept of constraints and guardrails has been shed in the second term. The guy who ordered the demolition of the East Wing of the White House with no process, with no hearings, with no plan, that's a man who doesn't have any constraints. It's a man who doesn't have, and he doesn't care if we laugh at it or we take it seriously. He's a guy who no one's successfully telling no to at the moment.
Well, since my name is mentioned, let me just make it clear. The issue in regard to what Donald Trump's doing in terms of National Guard or troops in the cities is going through the courts. The courts are deciding this. He's not doing this on his own. In fact, there was just a court ruling the other day from an appeals court that gave him power to do something. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but it's been legal. And just to say there's 22nd Amendment, I'm going to ignore it. I mean, that's patently ridiculous to think that the Congress now is going to go and do this. And I mean, Susan, I love Susan, okay? She's covered it for a long time. What are the odds, Susan, of the Congress of the United States and the states across this country of giving him a third term, with 3/4 of the states needing to verify it and 2/3 of the Congress needing to do something? There's zero chance of that, and you know that. So, look, the other stuff that we're all hoping for is that the legal system itself, including the Supreme Court, on issues on being born in the United States and are you a citizen or not. These are all decisions that get to be decided by that court, and that's the way it ought to be. And I just don't think there's any grounds here for them to overturn this.